Well, Sugita, let's expand this discussion. Let's get the snowball rolling. Right at the outset, Hindi films are flopping despite star cast and huge money. Highly anticipated films. I mean, we know what happened with Adi Purush recently, and not just Adi Purush. You've taken those names in the documentary itself. And right when the documentary begins, you've put out those statistics. Some 50% people stuck to OTTs right after the pandemic, and certain curbs were lifted. 17% downfall in terms of money revenue. Not a lot of films even hitting that break-even point. Why is Bollywood on the decline? Are there pointers that one can look at? Is it that out in the open?
So I think I'll have to bring in OTT right up in the front, because during the pandemic period, all of us were stuck at home, and Hindi films, or films per se, is something that literally they call popular cinema and popular form of entertainment, because everybody watches films, right? And we all needed entertainment, especially in those tough days when there was hard lockdown. None of us could step out, and so we all turned to something that we already know. We knew there was YouTube, but then we discovered OTT. It wasn't as if OTT was suddenly came into being then. This has been around, but we discovered it, and then you ran out of, because obviously there was no fresh content being made, so you wanted to see more things, and so you ran out of seeing just Hindi content, and there was no fresh content coming, so you started exploring. So instead of going, a lot of us went to probably English content, Korean content, Turkish content. There were most of us, actually quite a few of us even went to regional content. And Malayalam content, for instance, something that I've been watching for.
I watched 3-4 Malayalam films right down in the middle of the pandemic. Joji was one of those films that I really, really liked myself.
Yeah, and also See You Soon, or it was completely shot on Zoom, and and the whole thing just sort of exploded your mind, because you were seeing India. We've all seen India. We know India. It was something that we were all very familiar with in terms of the story and everything else, and some of the actors we knew, like Dulquer, for instance, or Prabhas, and all of these people, because we had seen Bahubali. But now what happened suddenly was that we could now get content which was beyond Hindi cinema. And I think Hindi cinema, like to quote one of my guests in the commentary, in my story, he said that Hindi cinema is making films from just that Versova to Kolaba area. They didn't step out. They're very happy doing the film songs and things.
In their own comfortable space, essentially.
In their own comfortable space and in their own comfortable format. And they are not willing to explore even now. They're not willing to experiment. And I think that is the big disconnect that happened. And I think the film people, because even when the cinema halls opened and all of us were dying to get in to see the films, we went into the theaters and we were like, what do we see? I mean, you saw the trailer and you get a sense of it. And there was nothing. I think the only thing I think Top Gun was the first thing that I went to see, but that's Tom Cruise. And he lived up to it, because all the effects that he did were real effects, right? He actually went, he flies a plane, he does all of that.
It was his own plane that he was fixing in the first scene.
And you have that connect. You can see through something that's false or not. I mean, if you've seen Mission Impossible, this is about to release on the 12th. Much before that, and since last year, they started releasing all the stunts that he's done to show people, to tell his fans that, look, I am actually doing that.
Are you talking about that bike jump that he did?
The bike jump, they've built a whole train from bottom up. They've actually made.
He also destroyed 7 bikes, jumping from the bike himself and parachuting down in the valley. I mean, impeccable stuff.
No, he said, they've talked about, where he says, the producer asked him that you've driven cars like crazy. How about upping your game and driving it with one hand? And there's a whole scene that we see in the trailer where he's driving.
Right.
So audiences know, let's put it like that. And I think they want more. They want something that they can connect with, they can understand and say, okay, fine, it's worth it. We want to come and see it. And OTT has just expanded their horizon in mind. So I think that's what's happening in the Hindi film industry.
With me personally, I felt that, of course, there was the monetary aspect with COVID-19. A lot of household budgets went, awry, and people couldn't instantly get back to the cinema. I think that's why the footfall in these cinemas was a little low towards the initial bit as soon as the curbs were lifted. But now it seems like when people have the money, they have that extra spending power to go and catch a film with a tub of popcorn. The quality, it seems, is being thrown under question. If you compare Bollywood with South India,
Yeah.
their unapologetic way of putting the stories out.
Yeah.
I mean, what the Bollywood was not doing, the South, movie industry, the film industry started doing that. What do you think the South has done well that's really clicking? I mean, take a look at RRR, from Natu Natu getting that recognition on world
Yeah.
stage, people dancing on Natu Natu at the Oscars. I mean, what more do you want?
So I have it's very funny because I remember when films like Dil Chahta and started, which was 2000 onwards, we started covering stories, and there was this whole conversation that started happening about how people were moving away from the Hindi format. Now, what was the Hindi film format? There was singing, dancing, lip-sync songs and all that. They moved away. They killed the character. They did that 70mm thing, which we were doing with Amitabh Bachchan till 70s, 80s. Then the romantic songs, which were happening in the 90s with, Dilwale, the whole
Right.
Shah Rukh thing.
Right.
They did away with all of that. They stuck to being realistic. They didn't want lip-sync songs. In fact, Javed Akhtar even said it in one of his, that people were doing. And it's so funny that now South Indian films have come back with a typical masala films. So they have the story, and then they have so South Indian film industry is always known for its technical excellence. They have even the institutes, and also they've always been experimental technique. We've all seen a Rajnikant film, to state the most obvious.
100%,
And they do
100%.
these bizarre, funny things which we all love.
I too did try to eat that chewing gum whilst bouncing it off of my palm.
Exactly. So you do all of those things. And that was very much what the Hindi film industry was also doing. These guys tried to go the left. They went completely either realistic, which was fantastic. It worked for some time. Or then they went the other way. They wanted to copy the Hollywood. So you saw a war of many action films, which you could see, oh, this scene is from Marvel. This scene is from there. This scene is from... So there was nothing new even in terms of action sequences. South Indian films have done 3-4 things which I think is right. A, they've stuck to the format of, like Natu Natu. I'm so happy a Hindi film song won it. I mean, come on, how can we Indian film industry, not
Certainly.
win an award for Hindi song and dance? And they've got the heroes, that entry and 70mm. I saw RRR actually. Just stuck. I loved it. I mean, there was CTs and Talis. And Hindi film watching in a theatre it's a community thing. South Indian films are doing that, and I'm not saying all of them are doing it. I'm saying, and I'm also I'm not too sure, but they're not all films that are being hit, but the ones that are really coming across and people are really appreciating, and therefore the monies that they're making are huge, is because of that. They've stuck to their format. They've worked hard on their technical aspects of it. They may take an idea from here and there and make it into but they make it into their own. And the main thing is their characters are very Indian. There's no wannabe Tom Cruise in India, wannabe, whatever else in India.
Right.
They are who they are. They're rooted, they're solid, they sing,
For
they
example,
dance.
Pathaan did really well at the box office.
Yeah.
But a lot of people came and said that you've married, the Marvel universe
Yeah.
with Mission Impossible
Yeah.
and the Bourne Ultimatum, the
Yeah.
Bourne Legacy.
Yeah.
It's like a Matt Damon, Tom Cruise, having a baby together, something like that.
True.
But it seems like they did something right in
Yeah.
comparison with the other Hindi films. Is there a revival formula? Are there some top tips that probably, some industry experts are already talking about that is out in the public domain that you can help the viewers with as well?
Well, see, most of the film industry is talking about, at the end of the day, they're saying content is the king. They all are saying that we need to work on the script, they need to get their story right. It is the king. You need to get your story. There are so many authors who've written amazing books. Like Amish Tripathi, for instance, his books have been signed. I mean, people have picked up his books, I believe, and they want to make films, but they don't know how to go about it. I just met yesterday an author who's an advocate who's written a book, and he's got his book, and he says, I'd love it if somebody can make a crown kind of a thing. And he says, every time he's taken it to a Bombay film industry, they're like, oh, it's too complicated, get us a story, then we'll do it. So it's a Bombay film industry, if you've sort of reported, they're very insular in some way, and they want everything on the platter. They want it different, but they don't know what different. And it's so contradictory that the same lot of people who are not getting the cinema right are getting the OTT content right. It's the same production house. So you fail to understand why is this disconnect happening.
So if the audience preference is changing and people are sticking to OTT, what's taking the Bollywood industry so long to pick up on? I mean, I agree with what you're saying that there is a complacency factor. People don't want to move out of their comfort zone. But if the OTT format is working, just expand that?
No, but that's what I'm saying. That the same producers, directors, and even actors now who are giving you successful content on OTT are not giving you the successful content for Hindi films. And Banda, the first, the film that Manoj Bajpayee, which was released on OTT, has seen a reversal. I mean, it's been such a big success on the OTT that it has now come to the theatres, and people have actually going to the theatres to see this film and are clapping at the end of the film. So it's not as if they don't know what is working. I think they need a little bit more of self-belief, and they need a little bit more of let me take a chance. They're scared to take, they are willing to
not risking it enough.
I think they're risking all on the OTT, and they're coming out on the tops, but they're somehow not wanting to translate that into mainstream cinema is just quite baffling for me too. So I'm hoping that they do that. I'll tell you a story. Subhash Kai, 80s, let me take you to 1980s, you weren't born. We were doing the same thing, what's happening to OTT generation currently. There was something called the VCR.
Right.
We weren't stepping into the cinema halls to see the films. I was getting everything on that tape.
Right.
I was getting my Hollywood serials, Hollywood films, Pakistani serials, everything I wanted, I got it on the tape. I didn't want to step out. And it used to be such a community thing, because we'd bring the tape, and all our friends would sit together and watch the VCRs at home. Today, people are not wanting to step out and do the same thing on OTT. When I became a journalist, I met Subhash Kai, and he told me that in 80s, when people weren't stepping out, and even they weren't stepping out to see good stories, he said what I did was I got a very good story, and I decided I have to take a multi-star cast. He said I got a 70mm surround sound put in it. I got songs that were leading up to, whatever. And he says, and when he released the film was Ram Lakhan. It became a super duper hit. I stepped out and saw the film 3 times. So idea is that you recognize what it is, you understand what it is. So the bottom line is a good story, well told, with extra padding. I think it sounds very easy, and I see the Indian film industry doing very well on OTT. I just wish they'd translate the same onto the big screen.
A talking head in the documentary made a point that really caught my attention. He said that the lack of a blueprint is what is working out for OTT and the South film industry. They are not betting all their money on one particular blueprint or format that's working. In that sense, how important do you think now star power and a budget for a film is anymore? Is it that big of a criteria for a film to get hit or tank at the box office?
So star is always interesting.
I mean, I know Shah Rukh Khan is a Shah Rukh Khan, of course.
Yeah, I purely, for me, the moment I heard Pathaan is coming in as Shah Rukh, I was like, I'm going to see it. They should be the same with Amir. If Amir was helming a story, you knew he's going to do it for a story that he believes in.
He created that brand for himself. Gajni, Three Idiots, Rang De Basanti.
All of that, and you want to step out and see a film that has Amir in it, because you want to say, oh, what is it that Amir has, it's interested Amir. With Salman, you know exactly what you're going in for. Hrithik, again, surprises you. He's done there's a story with Aishwarya Rai, and then he's done War. I mean, he was amazing in War. I really loved the film.
Guzarish, are you talking about Guzarish?
Guzarish, Guzarish to War. I liked all of that. So the star is very interesting and is very necessary to pull them in. So, I mean, all of us have favorite stars, so why not? I mean, I think it's fantastic. I love Ranbir. I think currently he's the best for me. I like to watch what he's doing. But it has to have more than just the star power.
For example, Kabir Singh, Vikram Vedha. I mean, the movies that Bollywood is directly picking up from South India are doing wonders at the Bollywood box office.
Yeah.
That is one blueprint that they have followed.
No, but another thing that they're doing is, I think that what they've started doing is cross-pollination, where they're picking up actors from Hindi film industry, and who are going, like Deepika is working with Prabhas, and, Amitabh Bachchan and Kamal Hassan are coming together again, together for this Prabhas movie. So there are a lot of actors who are, like Salman Khan got Venkatesh in his film, right? Kisi Ka Bhai, Kisi Ka Jaan. But that necessarily may not be the way out to sort of ensure a hit. Because at the end of the day, if the story is not good. But what is interesting is, and exciting for the viewer, is that you get to see now, is hopefully we get a film industry rather than a film industry film, per se. And I would be very interested to see. I mean, I follow South Indian actors a lot, so I'd love to see the mix of good actors coming. NTR is coming. Junior NTR is being signed on for War 2 as a villain. So I'm hoping that
with Yash Raj films.
Yash Raj films. So I'm it's exciting for me. So that's where your answer. The star cast is exciting in that sense, the announcement and the combinations. But
The PR.
ultimately, the PR also, and making it reach to the larger audience. But ultimately, when I see the trailer is when I'm going to decide, should I go and see the film or not?
All right, so we know that there are, tips and tricks that Bollywood can now incorporate to, revive their lost luster of the old, olden days. You yourself being a cinephile, are there specific themes that work well with Bollywood now in the last half a decade or so? And if so, I mean, what sets them apart, if at all there are any themes?
For me, what I've seen over the period of time when you've been following, you've seen that the films that have done well are the ones that have connected with what the audience is feeling in that decade, which is what gave rise to, like I said, I've been repeating this, the 70s, the angry young man came because there was disenchantment within the society, things were not working out. Similarly, so we've seen that happening, and so right now what has happened is there's a whole generation of youngsters who are there, and the film industry has not been able to find what is the connection. And when you see on YouTube and you see youngsters talking like yourself, you will find there's a lot of interest in, say, history, there's a lot of interest in India Rising, and there's a lot of interest in India Story. And that, I feel, is not reflecting in some of the films. Having said that, there are no formulas for success. If there were, then everybody would be making a successful film. But what one has seen over the years is the films that capture what's happening in that decade are the ones that really connect.
It's interesting that Vivek Agnihotri, by the way, do catch the documentary on the News9 Plus application. Yeah. Some real nice talking heads and celebrities on that documentary, Geeta. Vivek Agnihotri, I mean, he's given us the Kashmir Files.
Yeah.
The Kerala Stories is another story that did well. These controversial stories. Yeah. There's another documentary on that as well. The K Story. Yeah. You can catch that on the News9 Plus application as well. Vivek Agnihotri said that today, you've got an adult who's 18 years old, who was 2 or 3 years back. He's seen the pandemic. Yeah. He's seen people die. He's questioned existence. What people must have thought during the world wars, people have thought today, the youngsters have thought today. That youngster is today 18 years old. He's making decision, he or she is making decision for themselves. And what they want is for the film producer, the director, to not take them for a ride, essentially. Yeah. Is that what's happening? I mean, are we taking our audience for a ride? I mean, we've lost our audience, haven't we?
No, again, so what is happening is that a lot of people want to be entertained. That's the bottom line for a cinema, right? You want to go there and you want to be. But if there's somewhat a truth, and I'm not talking about the quality of the film, because honestly I haven't seen Kashmir Files yet, disclaimer, nor have I seen the Kerala Story, but there is an element of truth. There is, even if it's, say, a Kerala File, even if it's happened to one girl, in Kashmir Files, Kashmir Files, the
exodus
story,
of the
exodus of this thing, and also 3-4 cases that he's talked about. My seniors have reported them in our earlier, my first job. So I know those cases happen. I'm saying that even if there's, and then you remember everything, Google's, it's available on Google. So you just type and what was it a fact, was it a truth or not, and people get to know about it. So if there's an element of truth, a film could be good or bad, but people are interested in seeing. There was another film that's come, I think it was called Kartike or something. It's a South Indian hero where they talk about, Dwarka and Krishna's, it's like a modern Dan Brown film, which had Anupam Kher in that. Now, the film per se was not very good, but again, it connected because people want that. They showed Dwarka, they showed them going somewhere else, and things like that. So that kind of thing, I think, is working a lot. And even if you look on YouTube, you find a lot of people are listening to history, India Rising, and stuff like that. So I come back to that, saying that maybe the film industry needs to, again, taking Tom Cruise's example, the reason why he's putting out the facts that he's doing those stunts himself is to tell the viewers that, look, there is an element, it is an out-and-out masala film, but I've done those stunts. There is no CGI, there's no green screen, and I haven't stood in front of that and got it done. So I think the film, that's what these people want. They want the heroes which were larger than life for them to be heroes in the film and to give them a story that's their story, not a story that's copied from somewhere or the other. And the remakes of South Indian films may be working, but at the end of the day, now there's so much of crossover happening, and there's so much of and all those films are available on OTT, I think that also needs to stop, and they need to find their own stories.
That's actually a good point. I mean, if you had a Chris Hemsworth in the Thor suit out in front of everybody, and you had Tom Cruise, acting his part of, his role from the Top Gun, you'd probably have people relate to a Top Gun Tom Cruise more than they would relate to a Thor, Chris Hemsworth Thor. Which is why, again, Dawn Amitabh Bachchan and Dawn Shah Rukh Khan, those are some iconic roles, and people constantly keep on going back to them. Just to round up this discussion, and it has been a riveting one. Geeta, your final comments in terms of what's wrong, what needs to be done, and what are you expecting in the days to come?
So I love Hindi films, and I want to see a completely good Hindi film where I can sit there and come back. I loved a
Did you see Zara Hatke Zara Bachke recently?
No, I haven't, but I enjoyed the songs. I'm so happy the lip sync song is back, and I'm enjoying the songs in that film. And I want to see like a Pathan, but a story that's mine. And I want to see a Kahani, which was again beautifully done, which had helmed by Vidya Balan. So I'm looking for a good story which is well told, and I want my songs back.